As the Commonwealth meetings wrap up in London, Britain looks for new global partnerships as it prepares to leave the European Union. A new documentary details the Anglophones' desire to declare an independent state in Cameroon. And the US ambassador to Uganda sits down with VOA to talk about the nation's efforts to boost coffee exports. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent McCrory. This is Africa 54. Heads of state from across the globe are gathered in London this week for the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting. The organization emerged from the breakdown of the British Empire in the last century, and critics say it has failed to shake off its colonial legacy. But as Henry Ridgwell reports, the Commonwealth is under renewed focus in London as Britain looks for new global partnerships after it leaves the European Union next year.
Beneath the pomp and pageantry, deep questions linger over the Commonwealth's future. What is it for? What role should the former imperial power, Britain, play? In her opening address to the summit, Queen Elizabeth, the head of the Commonwealth, made it clear she wants its leadership to stay in the family.
And will decide that one day the Prince of Wales should carry on the important work started by my father in 1949.
Critics argue the Commonwealth should sever its royal links.
The problem in recent decades, really since the 1990s, is that as the Commonwealth has lost its relevance, it's lost any really major unifying issue to make it newsworthy. The only really newsworthy thing about the Commonwealth has been the royal family.
The Commonwealth has made headlines this week, but not for the reasons the British government intended. Prime Minister Theresa May apologised to the leaders of Caribbean member states after it emerged migrants who arrived in Britain in the 1950s and 60s from what were then British colonies had been refused residency and threatened with deportation.
We are genuinely sorry for any anxiety that has been caused.
Prime Minister May later apologised for the role Britain had played in criminalising same-sex relations in its former colonies.
I am all too aware that these laws were often put in place by my own country. They were wrong then, and they are wrong now.
Campaigners say millions of gay, lesbian and transgender people live in fear of arrest across the Commonwealth.
36 member states still criminalise same-sex relations. 9 have life imprisonment, and in parts of 2 countries, Nigeria and Pakistan, gay people can be put to death. Quite clearly, the rhetoric of the Commonwealth is not matched by the practice of the governments.
Despite tensions, the Commonwealth Summit has offered progress. Billions of dollars pledged to tackle malaria, a crackdown on plastic waste, a rainforest conservation drive. It also offers a global platform for countries seeking investment.
We are going to troll the whole world, right from Africa, Asia, Europe and the Americas, both North and South, to try and campaign for investments that will come to South Africa.
Some British lawmakers want to reinvigorate the Commonwealth as a free trade bloc after Britain leaves the European Union. Others say such rhetoric simply reinforces the Commonwealth's image as a last vestige of the British Empire. Henry Ridgwell for VOA News, London.
Exercise Flintlock 2018 has wrapped up in Niger on Friday. The US-led counter-terrorism program focused on training African forces to synchronize intelligence across large, mainly under-governed territories to stop the spread of extremists and stabilize the volatile region where 2 US soldiers lost their lives in an ambush late last year. The U.S. Department of Defense says some 1,900 service members from more than 20 African and Western partner nations participated in Flintlock 2018 in 3 countries in the Sahel region, Niger, Burkina Faso and Senegal. A key aim was to equip participants to stop violent extremist organizations such as Islamic State, Boko Haram and Akim in the Sahel. The U.S. military has ramped up its presence in Niger and other neighboring countries in recent years as it fears as poverty, corruption and weak states mean the region is ripe for the spread of extremist groups.
Flintlock is an exercise, but an exercise with a clear purpose, to fight against terror. So I thank the commander of the Special Forces of AFRICOM, who is with us. I take this opportunity to acknowledge the support that we have received from our American and Western partners, because there are many who have supported us, whether it's the Americans or the French. We face a common threat. Maybe the threat will manage to pass through the weakest link. If we reinforce that weak link, then we can all win together.
Well, West Africa's Sahel region is suffering a spike in violence by militant groups, some with links to Al-Qaeda and Islamic State, that is drawing an increasingly aggressive response from countries, including France and the United States. Well, demonstrations in South Africa's northwestern province have caused President Cyril Ramaphosa to cut short his visit to Britain and return home on Friday. He was in London leading a delegation to the Commonwealth summit. Protesters seeking jobs, better housing, roads and hospitals frequently clash with the police in a country faced with weak economic growth and near-record unemployment. These are the first big demonstrations since Ramaphosa took power in February. Well, on Thursday, we brought you the story of Nwango Tembe Dudon, a Cameroonian asylee in the United States, who hails from the predominantly English-speaking South, about his personal struggle to flee the country as protests and a quest to secede and form an independent country known as Ambazonia continues. Here's Africa 54's Estegidui Yuwat with Nwango's documentary on the fight for Ambazonia.
The film begins with a disturbing cry of anguish and desperation, showing raw footage of atrocities committed in southern Cameroon. Dieudonné adopts the name Dexter Brains in the film Patriots, which he produced and directed, hoping to raise awareness of what he says is the suffering of the people of Ambazonia.
I was just thinking, like, this could be a means of me exposing to the world at large what's happening in Ambazonia.
His diverse cast of 26 included men and women from Puerto Rico, Sierra Leone, Ambazonia, Somalia, Nigeria, Tanzania, and the U.S. American-born Pablo Gary Lewis acts as Sigma, the main character.
What was your role in the Patriots?
Well, my role is very clear. I am the boss. I'm the head of a team, and I am responsible for executing anyone who, goes against our norms here in the States.
He enters a deal with the government to hunt down key rebels in the diaspora. David Vande acts as Ambassador Bakari, representing his government's plan to hunt the rebels.
Your secretary has given us your rates, and we don't have a problem with that.
We will be counting on you for a clean and clear operation.
Sigma informs his team of the deal.
These targets are located in downtown Baltimore.
What do you expect the reaction of the Cameroonian government will be once the movie debuts?
It is not going to be anything strange to them, because it's like you're seeing something in real life and then they're showing you the same thing on the picture.
Pablo says the movie struck a personal chord. He was raised in foster care.
I understand the importance of family, and so my role was huge because there's so many Ambazonians out there.
Anglophone Cameroonians have in the past staged protests outside the United Nations in New York.
What I don't really understand is the position of the United Nations in all of this.
The last protest we had in New York was really large, and I think it made an impact.
The government of Cameroon is a coalition. That's why I'm wondering why there cannot be some sort of dialogue.
That the people of Ambazonia don't want dialogue, they want negotiations.
Their government wants them eliminated from the game immediately.
Sigma shows his team the sealed deal once they accomplish the mission of eliminating the 4 rebels.
Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
Sigma and his team execute their job.
Go!
Helpless, cornered, and facing death, one Ambazonian reminds his friends their death is not in vain.
You guys should know, we died for our nation. We died for Amazonia.
Pablo reflects on the finished product.
This movie is a game changer. It's never happened before. I've never personally seen an African action movie, jam-packed. From start to finish, it was perfect.
But I still want to know whether this Patriots movie agitates people to rise up against the government.
This movie is not going to inspire or push people to rise against the government. It's going to push people to fight for humanity.
Sigma completes the mission to eliminate the 4 rebels and walks triumphantly for his reward towards 46, the military chopper carrying his reward money. But there's a twist. Esther Gido-Ewart, VOA News, Washington.
Now, have you ever mixed up Switzerland with Swaziland? Not anymore. To clear any confusion, Swaziland's King Mswati III, Africa's last absolute monarch, is officially renaming the country as the Kingdom of Eswatini. Here's more with Julian Smathwaite of Reuters.
Swaziland's king thinks it's time the country had a rebrand. He says it's now to be known as the Kingdom of Eswatini. The new name still means Land of the Swazis, but it's in the local language and is what the country was called before being colonised by the British. Its king, Mswati III, made the announcement on his 50th birthday, which also happened to be the 50th anniversary of Swazi independence. The decision is his to make, as he's Africa's last absolute monarch. Mswati says he's long been concerned that people get Swaziland and Switzerland mixed up. The name change doesn't come as a total surprise. The king has referred to the Kingdom of Eswatini at international conferences in recent years. And it's not his first attempt at rebranding. In 2013, he said the country would become a monarchical democracy, though he later explained that nothing had really changed. It just sounded better to foreigners.
Well, we want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories you cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our show live on Facebook, so check us out and share our show with your friends. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vince McCory. Now, coming up, the U.S. ambassador to Uganda talks coffee with VOA. Stay with us. The Specialty Coffee Expo is taking place this weekend in the northwestern U.S. city of Seattle. This year, more than 20 Ugandan coffee producers are joining the U.S. ambassador to Uganda, Deborah Malek, who is also attending the event in an effort to boost exports of Uganda coffee to the United States. Uganda is Africa's biggest exporter of coffee. Africa 54's Zoe Ludaki sat down with the ambassador here in Washington.
With us today is the U.S. Ambassador to Uganda, Deborah Malek. Welcome to Africa 54, Ambassador.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here today.
So what brings you to Washington?
Well, I'm here for a variety of reasons, but really it's a way station to the most important reason I've come back to the United States. I'm escorting a group of about just over 20 Ugandan coffee producers and the members of the Ugandan Coffee Development Authority to a specialty coffee expo in Seattle. So we're very excited about the opportunity to go out and see what's happening, what's the newest in coffee technology, and introduce our Ugandan coffee producers consumers to the broad world of coffee production.
And what do you hope to accomplish with that?
Well, our goal really is to look for any opportunity that we have to build the commercial relationships between the United States and Uganda. And this is just one manifestation of some of the efforts that we at the embassy are undertaking in conjunction with our Ugandan partners to see where and how we can create export opportunities for Ugandan coffee in this instance. And a lot of that coffee goes to export, but only a very small percentage, about 3%, ends up in the United States. So we'd like to change that. I'd like to be able to walk into my local coffee shop here in the United States and see alongside the Kenyan coffee and the Ethiopian coffee, branded Ugandan coffee, so that I know I have a choice and other consumers have the opportunity to really taste some good coffee.
This expo, is it a very important expo in its field?
Yes, it's an annual event organized by Starbucks, but it brings coffee producers, those who produce equipment for roasters, buyers for coffee from across the world.
So what is a crucial step you feel that needs to be taken to move this forward?
We have done a lot of work through U.S. government assistance, through USAID, helping to improve production, working with coffee farmers, giving them new skills, providing them with new technology so they can produce more. And so they've been successful in growing their crop. The challenge remains how we get that from the field into the marketplace. So we need to continue to work in Uganda with coffee producers, with the buyers, with the sellers of coffee. But we also need then to work here to help U.S. companies who buy, or U.S. buyers of coffee, understand what Uganda can offer, how their coffee is different, how it can be roasted to suit U.S. palates, if you will. So we have work on both sides. But I think one of the real important pieces is helping the Ugandan producers understand what is needed in order to really supply the U.S. market in terms of quality, in terms of quantity, in terms of being able to deliver when a product is needed.
Uganda, you said, exports all of its coffee abroad. Which are the major countries that it exports to? My
understanding is it goes largely into Europe and then a few other places. And we do get some into the United States. The challenge is the type of coffee that they grow. They grow both Arabica and Robusta coffee. Arabica is the coffee that tends to be what we always consider specialty coffees, and the different ones that you know from Kenya and Ethiopia and from Malawi and other places that produce coffee. But the Robusta is usually the kind that gets mixed into and turned into instant coffees or gets put into blends, and so it's not as distinctive. So because some of that Robusta that they actually produce does likely end up in the United States and isn't necessarily captured in that 3% figure that I gave you, because it just gets blended in with coffees from all over the world and turned into instant coffee. So it's not marked as a Ugandan product. But what we are looking to do is look at this Arabica production that they do, which we believe can compete on an equal footing in terms of flavor with Arabica that's produced almost anywhere else in the world, but certainly that's produced within the East African region. So trying to brand it and make it known to U.S. consumers and coffee connoisseurs.
Well, that was the U.S. Ambassador to Uganda, Deborah Malloch, speaking with Africa 54's Zoe Ludeki. A recent study has revealed that for every man, woman and child on Earth, there is roughly 1 ton of plastic trash. Advocates say tackling such a huge problem can start with the tiniest step. As Earth Day approaches on April the 22nd, advocates are asking people to skip the straw. Viewer Steve Baragona has more.
Nearly every drink comes with a plastic straw. But have you ever wondered where they all go?
A straw.
A straw. Straws are among the most common items found in litter cleanups around the world. The nonprofit Ocean Conservancy has been holding cleanups like these for more than 30 years. Sarah Kohler is with the group's Trash Free Seas program.
And over the 30 years, volunteers have collected over 10 million plastic straws and stirrers off of beaches and waterways and coastlines around the world.
The group says the ocean is strewn with 150 million metric tons of plastic trash of all kinds, clogging coastlines, ensnaring wildlife, and even littering land far from any human settlement. And each year, another 8 million tons wash in. The problem is expanding rapidly in the fast-growing coastal nations of Southeast Asia, says Bridget Croak with the sustainable investment group Closed Loop Partners.
And it's, for two primary reasons. One is that the infrastructure isn't there to get it somewhere else.
The systems to collect, sort, and recycle materials are lacking in much of the developing world. The other reason, she says, is the single-use plastic packaging that makes up much of the trash is basically worthless. Plastic bottles are the exception that proves the rule.
There are kind of informal economy of waste pickers that are collecting that because they find value in that material and they can sell that.
Closed Loop Partners is working with some major companies to make more packaging recyclable and improve recycling systems. But in the meantime, Kohler and the Ocean Conservancy have a suggestion. Skip the straw.
For most of us, we can drink our beverage without a straw just fine. So it just kind of seemed like a really nice item to target to reduce the number that are out in the waste stream and effectively reducing the number that can end up on the beach.
Or try an alternative, like reusable, washable metal straws. While skipping the straw will not solve the plastic pollution problem, Kohler says it's a way people can get started.
We get questions all the time asking about how people can prevent marine debris in their everyday lives. Skipping the straw is kind of the first thing that we tell them. It is really that entry point.
They hope people will then start thinking about other ways that can use less plastic and help keep it out of the oceans. Steve Baragona, VOA News, Washington.
Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54, how a makeup artist attracts social media followers through blood and guts. We'll be right back.
This is a country that I chose to become a citizen. I didn't have to become a citizen. I chose to become a citizen.
I feel like America gave me an opportunity to pursue my passion as an artist.
I really believe that clean eating is a way to a more successful life or a happier life, if you want to put it that way.
One of the things that helps me wake up every morning is doing better, being better.
We grew up poor, and so I'm always focused on helping the working class be able to have a more comfortable lifestyle.
I'm passionate about doing justice every day. I oftentimes say that justice is a verb, not a noun. I believe in action and moving the ball forward.
Welcome back to Africa 54, and here's what's trending. Bleeding and gashing wounds. That's how special effects makeup artist Eno Correa attracted more than 10,000 followers on her social media feeds. Eno lives in Buea, the capital of the southwest region of Cameroon, and had been doing makeup for weddings and photo shoots before she developed an interest in special effects. She uses kitchen staples like bananas, powdered milk, and beetroot to create the fake injuries. The film industry in Cameroon has long existed in the shadows of Nollywood, neighboring Nigeria's multi-million dollar sector, which is ranked second largest in the world after Bollywood by quantity of films produced. But Cameroon is now experiencing a revival thanks to digital screening options and cheaper production technology. Well, next up, with increasing rates of infertility worldwide, researchers are exploring new fronts in reproductive technology. University of California, Los Angeles scientist Amanda Clark and her team are working to convert human skin samples into eggs and sperm. This process is known as in vitro gametogenesis, or IVG. So far, that process has worked only with samples from mice. This is a different method than creating designer babies through changing an embryo's DNA known as gene editing. Researchers say there are still a host of safety concerns that need to be studied before this process can be tested in humans. But one day, parents could have dozens of embryos to choose from with different traits. Well, and finally, flora, fauna, and fashion. A new exhibition in London is exploring the links between the natural world and clothing. Fashion from Nature addresses how the industry relies on the planet for resources and inspiration and what can be done to promote sustainability. Planet life and animals have been an inspiration to designers for hundreds of years, while man-made fibers have done their damage to the world, and textiles from the 20th century are notorious for their toxicity. New techniques are emerging which are kinder to the planet. Sustainable, environmentally friendly fashion is now being championed by some big names, and that's what's trending today. Well, we now leave you with Sassou and Maher Sissoko, a Senegalese-Swedish married duo that has been making music for over a decade. Here's their song, Jamfata. From all of us in Washington, have a great weekend.
Vart jag med än befinner sig, några hemmaminnen kan smäcka mig på kinden, så hittar jag till grinden när detta varv är klart. Musiken är i rymden, jag är en astronaut, alltid är jag på väg, jag känner inga slut, för allting bara börjar. Planeten är min fru, på denna världens skrud. Jag måste snurra upp, fast jag är långt borta, delar vi samma luft. Bortom din horisont sitter jag någonstans och drömmer. Det kvittar var på kartan, när strax vid ditt fönster står under samma regn. Men idag är jag tillbaka för att värma upp i kalla sidan av din säng. Innan vers blir det regn, storm några grader. Fast den sist vi såg känns som år och dag. Livet är som vatten och jag är vätskedriven. Viskar mitt namn i vinden, jag hittar hem till Sweden.
Welcome to English in a Minute. Liquid boils when it is heated to a certain temperature.
Boils down to this.
So Jonathan and Anna are probably talking about cooking. Or are they? I got a job offer.
That's great. Congratulations.
Thanks. But the job is in California. All my friends and family are here in DC.